Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. Delphi's barking, so there's nothing I can do about it right now. So please forgive me. We're living in a new space, and she's meeting new people who make her bark. So we're going to do our best. She doesn't go on too long. First of all, for those of you that are new, I see a couple of questions being asked about the Facebook page membership. You have to friend me on my personal Facebook page, and I will post that link at the bottom of the chat when we are done here. I can't do it right now. It will require too many different steps. So please bear with me. It's the way it's set up as a secret group. You have to be a friend of mine on my personal page, and then I can add you. So I am considering changing that because it's a bit laborious and it's hard for people to figure it out. So that's what we'll do today. Please check at the bottom of the conversation as we end, and I will put the Facebook link for you there. It's my personal page, not our public pages. What else? Just going to go through a couple of things before we get straight to Jesus. We have, of course, put up our English retreat. I was guided strongly to offer an event in England. I think we have we've already got 5 or 6 people on there in one day, so that's going to go pretty quickly. We do have a few spaces left on our Crete retreat, which is coming up in 1 month. We have off-site spaces, so the residential openings are full, but it's a resort village, so there are lots of cute and inexpensive Airbnbs around if you're considering that. We are 2/3 booked on our Salt Spring retreat already, so if you are mulling that one over, we do have 2/3 booked there as well. Our Mexico event is we've just got a little teaser page up on the website for you to see where it's going to be, but the details aren't out yet. So that's a little stressful for me when Delphi barks because I can't control her. So it just shows my control issues. Hang on a sec. All right, let's see what Jesus has to say for us today. You are blessed beings indeed. I am that one that you know as Jesus. And of course, as we always say, we are very thankful that you have come together with your little bodies to this particular communion. This is a communion, and the longer you stay in this group, of course, the more you feel it. You begin to connect with particular people. You might message them once on your Facebook setup, and then you begin to interact with them more frequently. Some of the teachers of channeling and other channelers in this group are wonderful, wonderful additions to your spiritual evolution. There is not just our dear one here. She, of course, has been something of a lightning rod for many other wonderful, wonderful teachers, and has, in fact, facilitated the opening of many minds to their own abilities. So for new beings, this is something for you to really look forward to as you spend more time with us, with your fellow students, and with our dear one through her teaching and videos. This time is a time of you coming into your power. This is a very, very important thing. Some of you have been scrambling a little bit as we have encouraged you to step into your power, feeling a feeling of panic, feeling of confusion, feeling as if you don't know what to do. All of you actually know very, very clearly what is not working for you in your life because your guidance system tells you so. There are 2 options there. You may need to change your mind about the story you're telling yourself about that particular part of your life, or you may need to move towards a new experience. Rather than seeing leaving an old experience, if it's something that you are no longer enjoying, that could be, let's say, a move to another part of the country or another part of the world. Some of you are being guided to move. Some of you may not know specifically where to go, and this can cause great confusion. But we want you to use your logical minds in all of these situations, whether it be a move, a physical move to another part of the world or another part of the country or even another part of your town. Or it might be a reconfiguration of a relationship that you've had. And we're not just talking about sexual partners here, romantic partners, we're talking about family relationships as well. You understand when you feel bad around a particular situation or a particular person. The first thing we want you to address in stepping into your power is asking yourself, what story are you telling? What is the information you are regurgitating about this situation all the time? This could be what is actually undermining your power. Rather than leaving the person, place, thing, experience, you may need to reframe your story. You may be having a very disempowered story. You may be telling a very old story. This is one of the ways that you can improve your situation. You are able to change a story and completely change your emotional feedback when you're in that situation. Now, some of you may not want to. Some of you may have a desire. We're going to use moving because it's much less triggering than relationships. So it doesn't bring up so much fear in you. You may think, I have wanted to move out of this house for 2 or 3 years. Why am I not moving? What is it that is stopping me? It could be fear of financial loss or financial complications. It could be fear of the unknown. It could be an old family pattern of staying put in places a very long time that you are actually working on breaking in this lifetime. The thing you must remember about any of the issues that you have that seem to be problematic, that seem to be difficult for you to deal with, these are the very issues that you have assigned to yourself in this incarnation to work on. Working on them does not mean fixing them in one day. What it means is becoming aware that there's an area of your life that is constantly of a lower frequency than you would like it to be, because it doesn't feel good. That's what a lower frequency feels like. It doesn't feel good. You may observe that for quite some time. Humans, generally speaking, are very, very slow to change because of their conditioning programs. So you may have been feeling discomfort, unease, frustration, wishing things were different for quite some time. Now is the time to begin to address these issues. Why? Why are we harping on at you here? Why are we telling you to up your game? Because the time is over for procrastination. In A Course in Miracles, it is very clear that you are stepping into a mind training program that is going to shift and change your life drastically. If you are doing A Course in Miracles, if you are doing your forgiveness practice, your frequency is going up. What does that mean? That means that things that are unloving, things that are sacrificial, martyring, unhealthy for you are going to make themselves more and more and more apparent, not as a punishment, but because that is really what you are asking for when you are doing A Course in Miracles. You are saying, I think I'm a bit dysfunctional. I think there's things I need to learn. I'm not very loving. I have some resentments. I'm going to do these lessons because I hear that they can bring peace to my mind. Yes, they can bring peace to your mind, but you must remove from your mind those things that no longer align with the frequency of A Course in Miracles, which is everything that is unloving. So when we begin to push you a little bit and say it's time for you to address these issues, we don't necessarily mean it's time to jump off the cliff of leaving that person or moving. It's time to assess what's going on inside of you in a systematic and diligent way. Otherwise, you will not be able to change your behavior, because your behavior is determined by your beliefs. If your beliefs are out of accord, your behavior will be distorted. It's as simple as that. So when we say we need you to up your game, we need you to focus on what it is that's causing unhappiness in your life. That's what we mean. We don't mean rush. We don't mean make impetuous decisions based on fear. We mean begin to ask yourself on a regular basis throughout the day, why am I unhappy in this situation? Is it the story I'm telling about it? Is it my own projections that are causing me discomfort, this perpetuation of separation? What do we mean by that? What do we mean by my own projections? Well, if somebody is annoying you, generally speaking, they are bringing up something in you that you need to look at. But in the ego's tricky way of working, it blames the person who was the trigger. So you don't look inside, you don't fix the actual problem. You say, he made me angry, he hurt my feelings, she abandoned me and made me feel awful. You don't go beneath the form into your own mind and go, why do I always feel abandoned? This is not the first time I've had this feeling. This is a pattern of mine. That is what we mean by projection, that you have an internal reaction to somebody and you blame them. Instead of owning it and saying, this feeling arose in me because of what they said, yes. But if you have no wound, if you have no shadow relating to those words, nothing will come up. If somebody looks at you and says, you're green, you will say, no, I'm not. You won't have a reaction to it because you know you're not green. But if somebody says you look ugly in that and you have terrible opinion about your appearance, all of the pain that you have inside of you about your appearance will come rushing to the surface. And yes, it will look like they caused it because they said something unloving. But if you did not believe that you were ugly or unattractive, it would not have fazed you at all. So in us telling you now is the time to address these issues, it is because of the transformative nature of your planet and the energies of this system right now. Your Earth is activating systems of healing that are going to affect all of you. Her frequency, Gaia's frequency, is shifting and changing. It is imperative, and yes, we are using strong language here because you've had many, many years to deal with these issues, many, many conversations with us and with your fellow students. It is imperative that you get a decent amount of time each day out in nature, out in your garden, going to a plant store to stand in the health and beauty of that. Buying some flowers for your garden, planting some potatoes in your garden, digging over that bare patch at the back that is very unattractive and investing a little time and money so that you are getting physical exercise, you're connecting with the earth, you're out in the light, you're out in the wind, you're not just sitting on an armchair out there, but you are fully participating in the natural environment. This is going to be the biggest help for all of you right now. Your forgiveness practice and nature is going to be the biggest help for all of you right now because the high frequencies of the shifting planet can reach you outside when you're in the garden, when you're in the woods, when you're on the beach, when you take your shoes off. They can get you and they can upgrade you. It's all happening every single second of every single day. This planet's energy is shifting up, up, up. But if you are immersed in your home, if you're immersed in your computer, if you're immersed in your office work, if you're immersed on the transportation and on pavement and concrete, you are only getting a very, very small upgrade when you could be getting a very, very big one. So we want to tell you that we have been guiding our dear one here through various means to get outside as much as possible. And that is why. It is not just to get fresh air, it's healthy for you, it's to get the upgrades. So when she was guided to go to Sedona, for example, this is not something that all of you are going to be guided to do. In fact, each of you will have your own place, your own location where you get drawn to, and that is fine. Don't compare. But when she was drawn to Sedona, because of her love of that landscape, she spent so many hours outside with Delphi Dog, so many hours watching the sunrises and the sunsets, allowing that frequency of light into her consciousness, that she had a tremendous upgrade when she was there. Not from something outside of her per se, but because of her connection to the land, because of her immersion in the desert landscape, because she was exposed to light. Many of her cohorts in the north, tucked into their houses, watching Netflix, not going outside, missed out on those upgrades. Now, you may say, well, that's not fair. I live in the northern climates. Well, that is a choice, and you must own that choice. You must get out as much as you can in the winter. We know it drops to horrendous temperatures up north. And that is something that you're just going to have to assess in your own mind, whether or not that's a good decision for you. Our dear one at times gets quite perturbed that Canada does not own a Hawaii or a Costa Rica or a small island somewhere, but she has managed to find her way to the light. You all can find your way to the light, and it is imperative now that you do. We are not talking about tanning in the midday sun. We are talking about walking in the dappled light of the natural environment of the woods, going for a walk in a field, sitting at the beach reading instead of sitting at on your couch reading, turning your computer off whenever you get that feeling, I've been on here long enough. Instead of saying, I'm going to go and find something more interesting to watch, when you get that feeling, turn it off, go outside for a stroll, talk to your neighbors, look up at the moon, look up at the stars, look up at the sun, engage with your environment. We know, we nag you, but we see the incredible power that the inside has for you. So that is our main message for you today. Take advantage of the galactic upgrades that are coming, that are here, that have been here for quite some time now. And be grateful that you have this knowledge. Do not feel resentful that you are being asked to do something that makes you a little uncomfortable, but be grateful that you are able to hear these words, understand their importance, and comply with them. So make sure that you are looking at those areas where you are uncomfortable, where you would like to see change, instead of just pushing them away, dismissing them, repressing them, blaming on someone else. Own it and say, I have always been unhappy in this part of my life I've been unhappy for about 3 years. Now is the time for me to figure it out. And it will bring up fear, because if you've been ignoring it, if you've been hiding from it, then it's because it frightens you. But you must understand that these things are not going to heal themselves. They are your choice. They are there by your allowance, by your investment, and by your deciding that your comfort is more important than your healing. So that is another phrase we'd like you to think about. Is your comfort more important than your healing? You are trained into comfort in this society. You have very, very plush and beautiful homes, many of you. Even if you don't have a big home, you have a home that is full of all the things you want to keep you comfortable inside. And so just be aware of your comfort level. Are you a little too comfortable? Perhaps it's time to get a little uncomfortable. So that is our introductory statement. We want you to pay attention to it. That's why it's an introductory statement. It is more important, perhaps, than the questions you have asked. So we will take a little break here and give our dear one a chance to sip on a drink, and we will return for more shortly. All right, I forgot to check. Okay, there's no screams of I can't hear you. That's great. Okay, let me just have a little sip of my tea and talk amongst yourselves for a moment. Recently, I have been hearing a lot about the 3 days of darkness. I have heard about this too. Would Jesus speak to us and elaborate on the 3 days of darkness and what that is all about? I have to tell you all, I have a little resistance to answering this question. So just put that in your back pocket. I'm not sure why. I don't know why. You are blessed beings indeed. I am that one that you know as Jesus. And the reason this being has resistance to this is fear of humiliation. She is afraid that I'm going to say something that won't come true and that she will be held responsible. So first of all, we want to rest assured that we will not be saying anything that won't come true. And we want her to know that we respect her for channeling about something about which she has resistance. All of you have resistance in these areas where there is an implication that death may be coming. And of course, that's a natural survival mechanism that your brain has. It is set into fight or flight or high alert when some information comes its way that seems to threaten survival. So when we speak about the harvest or the ascension or the end of a spiritual season, most of you have a fear response. And that is because the ego is in charge of keeping you alive physically, and it does not like that kind of information. It immediately goes into its fear of death. It immediately wants to make you put you in avoidance mode, fight or flight. It wants to. So in that sense, fight. What does fight or flight mean? Fight or flight mean? It means fight will deny the information. It will argue with the information. It's saying, no, I don't want that. That's stupid. That's unacceptable. And that's the reaction our dear one is feeling. That is the fight response. I don't want to channel about this. The flight response is, where can I go? Where can I hide? Where can I live that's safe? So that is what your mind will be doing when we discuss some of these subjects that seem to imply a shift in consciousness, what you call death. We call it a shift in consciousness because that is what it is. You don't die. You were alive before this body was born, and you will be alive after this body is born. Death is an illusion. It is a temporary, illusory belief that you hold while you're in a body, but you will not die. So this is the first thing that we want you to address when these fight or flight reactions come, because you are going to have a negative response to any information that implies significant change in your world, because that is the setup of the ego mind. It will fight or flight. So we want to address here, all of you, your fear of death. The second book that this being channeled, was called Great Minds Speak to You, and it is a compendium of stories from beings who have passed over, who have information for you. And if you have this fight or flight response to some of this information, we would like you to read that book, because it is about communications from beings who have passed over. Some of them speak about their experience of passing. Some of them speak about their work that they're doing after their passing. And some of them are reassuring that your passing, or that your worldly decisions do not take you to hell, for example, because many of you have those ideas embedded deeply in your minds. So if you have a fight or flight response to the idea of natural disaster, we would like you to read that book so that you may put some of your fear of death aside, because that is going to serve you very, very well over the changes that are coming to your planet in the next decades. It's decades. There's a lot of change coming. But back to the original question, the reason we do these sidebars is to address the internal reactions that you have while you're having them, so that you understand what they are. The 3 days of darkness refers to a response from the sun to a sudden shift in its energy. There is, we will say, on the books in the next 10 years or so, a chance that your sun will have a little hiccup. Well, a little hiccup when you're a baby is not a big deal, but a little hiccup when you're a sun, a star, powerful, powerful emitting device, powerful, powerful consciousness, it is a big deal. And that is a possibility in your time-space reality. Now, what does this mean, a possibility? It is your world is set up on probabilities. Probabilities mean that the ultimate destiny of your planet, the ultimate destiny of your society, the ultimate destiny of your experience here is constantly changing based on the frequency of the collective consciousness of all of you. There have been significant disasters averted because of the New Age movement, because of A Course in Miracles, for example. Every time you choose forgiveness instead of hate, every time you work towards letting a resentment go, you are shifting and changing the timeline that you are going to experience. So we will tell you that there are people on this planet that are in hell right now. There are people on this planet that are in heaven right now, and they're all on the same planet. It is an effect of their frequency, that which they are experiencing. It is an effect of their incarnational we won't use the word karma because that makes you think of punishment. It is a collection of their incarnational history that leads them to have a particular experience through their own free will choices over those incarnational experiences. So there are beings that are going to have positive responses to the sun's hiccup because of the frequency that they are holding. And there are going to be beings that will have negative responses to the sun's hiccup because of the frequency that they are holding, all of them through their own free will choices. Now, these are physical, material experiences that are happening in this illusory world. Remember, your Course in Miracles practice is designed to take you above the battleground into a happy dream and eventually to reality, not in this place. The frequency stepping stone takes you up out of the battleground into the ability to observe and experience life on this planet without its troublesome and volatile dramas. That is the initial phase of you training your mind. There are beings who are going to have a very, very positive experience from the physical light shifts and changes that this planet and the solar system are going to go through because they are prepared for it. They are open to it and they are excited about expansion. They are excited about change. If you are not excited about expansion, if you are not excited about change, if you want everything to stay the same, you are going to have a difficult time of it over the next few years. So this is why in our previous monologue, we asked you to address those things in you that are unloving, because these are the things that are going to keep you down in the battleground, that are going to that are going to help you have a less than optimal experience. So the questioner wants a very, very specific definition. The reaction to the hiccup of the sun will be a dimming of the sun. Now, it is a short-term reaction to that expansion. So if you look at your lungs, you expand, you contract. Well, the sun's got a great deal longer breath pattern than you, and this happens once in a while. There is a breath in and a breath out. What is going to, when we will say, what does it look like when you have a solar eclipse? You all had a full solar eclipse very recently in North America. Some of you have seen it in other parts of the world. When that shadow goes across the sun, you feel a drop in temperature and it goes to twilight. Now, because you know it's a temporary thing, because you know that it is an eclipse, you don't go into deep panic, but you do feel a very, very strong sense of how dependent you are on the sun. It is life. It is what keeps you going here. And without it, it is impossible to have life on this planet. So we want you to understand that the dimming of the sun after the hiccup is something not to prepare for in a fearful way, but to prepare for in a frequency way. And that is why we are doing these teachings. That is why A Course in Miracles was brought through, so that you can all bring your frequencies up to a point where you are able to be above the battleground, where you are able to go through a shift such as this without fear of dying. Because that is where the panic comes from. That is where the negative reactions of humans come from, is when they go into fight or flight and they go into survival mode and they will kill each other in order to survive. That is the ego at its worst. So that is a probability. That is not a for sure thing, but that is what the energy systems look like as we monitor them from this side of the veil. It looks as if there will be a hiccup sometime in the next 10 years, probably 5 to 10 years away. You have all been asked to address your living styles. You have all been asked to address your gardening styles. You have all been asked to address your investment styles. And we want to remind you of that. We want you to feel the panic if it's coming up. And we want you to say to yourself, that is my ego reacting to some information that threatens its belief in the body. I'm not going to go there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to listen to the advice that I've been given in this group for years and years and years, and I'm going to get out in nature. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to stop watching TV. I'm going to turn my phone off as often as possible. Yada, 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 yada. You know the prescriptions. And that is going to open up your consciousness to higher frequency information, guidance, inspiration. That is where your answers lie. We will not give you the answers because it does not serve you. You must grow and evolve and expand yourselves through your own free will choice, or you get to come back again and do it again. It's just that simple. Do not panic. There are those of you that have truly, truly panicked and feel that they have become agitated, angry, super scared. That means that you're doing it completely incorrectly. It's not about the information. It's about your reaction to the information. Go back to presence. Go back to knowing that guidance takes place in a clear and quiet mind in this eternal now. It does not take place out there in a panicked frequency. It takes place within you when you are peaceful. So no matter what the physical threat is, global economic reset, depression or recession, strange political leaders, migration problems, whatever those things are that upset you, the answer is always the same. Your ego feels that it's under threat and it doesn't want to die. We are saying to you, let's get the ego under control through these practices, and let's remind ourselves every single day that you were before this body was born and you will be after this body seems to die. It does not die, you merely leave it. That's all that happens. You leave it. And it is nothing without you. So don't value the body over yourself. Understand always that when the fight or flight response comes up in you, that you have gone into the ego's world and that you will fear and you will doubt and you will scramble. So step back into the Course in Miracles thought system. It is a complete thought system. Once you step out of it, you are completely out of it. You are completely in the ego's thought system. Do not fret about dying. Do not fret about natural disaster. Do not fret. Keep your mind at peace and listen to the guidance that you get. That is your job. We will return shortly. Alrighty. My world didn't end because I channeled about that. There you go. I'm just going to have a little sip, give my voice a minute to break. Hang on. Okay. A two-part dream question for the love stream. I am currently pregnant, and like most pregnant women, my dreams are extremely vivid and seem to go on all night long. It would seem that something chemical or hormonal causes the changes in dreams. Can you elaborate on what is happening when women get pregnant? Several sessions ago, briefly, orgasm in dreams were mentioned as a way of making energetic adjustments. Can you explain what is happening there, since you've mentioned that it's happened to me frequently? Thanks so much. Okay, let's see what Ananda says about crazy dreams and orgasms at night. We're with you again, dear ones. We are Ananda. We are your guides and teachers, and we are, of course, always pleased to have this opportunity to speak to you, with you, and to hang out with you in your collective, communal coming together. Your birthing process is a fascinating one indeed. There are miracle upon miracle that happens to bring a body into being so that you may have an opportunity to evolve. That is what your birthing process is. It's the creation of a body by you for yourself. So we have covered this in some of the books, but perhaps you have not read them. When a being wants to have an incarnation, there is a selection process that goes on, and parents are chosen. Which ones are going to provide the being with the best environment for their particular set of assignments in this incarnation? Remember your spiritual blueprint that you come up with your guides and teachers. So your guides and teachers and you come up with a blueprint for your life that requires certain things. It may require that you are born into poverty, for example, and that one of your goals is to disconnect from your lust for money. Perhaps you were very wealthy in another incarnation and abused that privilege and did some very untoward things, and now you're getting a contrasting experience so that you can compare. This is often what's happening, and this is one of the reasons it's so important that you do not judge someone else's life, because you do not know what they're comparing it to. Some beings will have been very, very powerful in another incarnation. They may have wielded that power terribly, caused a lot of pain, and now they will come into a very powerless situation. You might look at them and go, they are weak, they are not evolved, they are not good, but you have no idea that they are learning an experience of powerlessness to balance and to compare and contrast another incarnation where they had extreme power. So we want you to really grasp that principle as we're going through this conversation. The being that's coming into your body is checking you out. The being that's coming into your body has picked you tentatively as a parent, and it is assessing and analyzing a lot of the belief systems and inner workings of your consciousness. So a lot of this happens in the dream time because most of you in the daytime have the ego very, very strong and active. And it is quite a barrage of thinking and static interference, we'll call it, from the worry, the thinking, the anger, the resentments, whatever you're working through. No judgment here again. Remember, that's what you're here to do. You're here to see what's going on in your mind and eventually relinquish it. So what happens when a spirit is coming into you as a baby, it is not a new thing. It is not a new form in that pre-birth state. It is a soul that has had many incarnations and has chosen you in this time and place to be the next vehicle through which it will access this frequency. And so it is assessing a lot of your beliefs. It will trigger a lot of your beliefs. It will investigate a lot of your beliefs, often in concert with its guides and teachers. So you have a lot going on in you that has got nothing to do with hormones. This is often the first place that you go to because of your training, your materialistic training in this society. If you have an intense dream, you'll say, well, I ate cheese before bed. This is just a way of dismissing spiritual guidance. This is just a low frequency way of saying, no, that whole interior world is of no interest to me. I'm going to use the physical material world as my only source of value. And this is really where your science has broken down over the last couple of 100 years, where it separated itself from religion, which was a good beginning, but it separated itself from spirituality and guidance and love as well. And that is why your scientists now can invent things that are deadly and killer and, and implement them without any thought. Because the idea of feeling of conscience has been eliminated from science. It has gone to the physical. So the spiritual, the love, the heart, the feeling part of you has not been allowed into the scientific realm. And it is to your detriment. So don't tell the story that it's just your hormones. It is your little one getting to know you. And so when you go to sleep at night, you can actually open up that idea in your mind, and you can say, I would love to meet you. Can we meet in the dream state? I'd love to remember that dream if possible. That does not always happen because it's very important that you do not interfere with the baby's decision to come to you. Some babies do not make the full commitment to being born to the person who is pregnant with them, and this can happen. So this is not what we're saying will happen. Don't go into fight or flight. But some beings will go into their potential parent for some months. They will experience their beliefs, their ideas. They'll get some idea of the environment in which they will be born, and they may very well go, this isn't going to work for me. This is too restrictive an environment. I need more freedom. This is too free an environment. I need more restriction. It is not one particular way. And they may vacate that embryo or that fetus. Sometimes another soul will take over. So this idea that the soul is in there from the beginning is not true. The soul, the consciousness, will move in and out of that physical body over and over and over and over again, many hundreds of times during the pregnancy. Often when the baby is very, very still, when you say it's sleeping, it is actually up in its higher realms with its guides and teachers, chatting over, mulling over some of the things it's learned. And sometimes what happens in the decision-making process is that the spirit will take on a much too ambitious project. And it is not until that they're well into the pregnancy that they will think, this is too much for me. I'm not going to be able to cope with this. And they may be counseled along those lines by their guides and teachers. Because the opportunity to come into an incarnation is very, very valuable, some beings try and work on too much when they're here to their detriment. They actually will become overwhelmed. Sometimes suicide practitioners are beings who have taken on too much. They simply cannot do the assignment that they've been assigned, and they want to go home, and they have to go home. So that is what is happening with your baby. It is interacting with you. It's downloading some of your information, and it is asking you what kind of a parent you're going to be. So when you think of your baby, think of it as a spirit. Do not think of it as a physical being, because that's not really what it is when it's in utero. That is not really what it is. It is a spirit entertaining the idea of becoming a human. So you can set up a dialogue with your spirit baby with that in mind, and talk about and reflect on what some of the things are in your life that a child might not enjoy. This is a wonderful, wonderful time for you as the mother to say, is there something I need to look at here? Is there something that is causing a problem for the family already that may not be of benefit to this baby? And perhaps I should start addressing it now so that we don't add another being into a dysfunctional relationship. We want you to know that spirit is on your side. A baby coming into your life through its own free will choice is a great honor. And we want you to honor that child. We want you to respect that child from the moment it comes in here, not just love and protect it, but to respect it and talk to it in a way that you express that respect. So not overriding its guidance system, not forcing it into doing the family traditions, for example. This is one form of abuse that is heaped upon children, is making them do the very things that you have done. At times, even when you haven't enjoyed them, you're going to pass that inheritance along. Really, really look and ask yourself, what is the inheritance that I want to give to this child? I'm doing it now, before they're born. Is this a kind inheritance, a loving inheritance, an inheritance that's going to help them? If not, then that is something that we would like you to look at right now. We will return shortly. Oh, they didn't talk about the orgasms. We're with you again, dear ones. We are Ananda, and we have a reason for doing everything that we do. The subject of the baby was important to keep away from the subject of the orgasms because of the belief systems you have about sexuality and sexual orgasm. So that was a little break between answers so that they did not get enmeshed there. We want you to understand that the vital life force of creativity manifests as sexual energy. And all of you that remember being young, some of you may still be young, you know the force of that desire for reproduction, that the force of that desire for connecting. It is seems to possess you. Well, it seems to possess you because it is the very source of life. It is the very source of the meeting between two minds. It is not bodies, it is minds. And that is where your society falls down, is the minds are fearful and the minds shut down the sexual energy. So it is important for you to understand that the shift and changes that are happening, because life is coming through you, it is facilitating the opening up of that vital life force channel. And it's a wonderful, wonderful channel for each of you to consider working on. Why did we write Making Love to God first? Well, we told this being, that it was the most important subject that we wanted to address first. Now, everyone has free will. This being has free will. We had one book that we wanted to get through. It was, in fact, a possibility that our dear one here would have only written that one book. That was a possible timeline. She may have been overwhelmed. She may have chosen not to channel. She may have decided that it was too difficult. And at times in those early days, it was very, very difficult for her to manage the energy and the information that was coming through. So there was a possibility that only one book would come through. That was the one that was chosen to come through because it is such an important subject. It is such a powerful energy, and it is such a distorted energy on your plane because of the religious teachings around shutting it down, distorting it, even mutilating your baby's bodies so that they do not feel it. Circumcision is one of those attempts by the rulers of your society to shut down your sexual energy. It's got nothing to do with health. It's got nothing to do with anything other than shutting down sexual energy. We do not want any of you to feel guilty if you have circumcised your children, but we want you to understand that that's what it's about. There's nothing else at play there. It is simply a technique that was used and found many, many centuries ago to traumatize children into shutting down the higher brain functioning, and it made them much easier to manage. And it shut down and traumatized the sexual energy centers of the body, put the child into a deep state of fear so that they did not function at a high level. Now, we know that's pretty harsh, and there are those of you that are probably just, as our dear one says, gobsmacked right now, but we want to tell you the truth so that you do not perpetuate that horrific tradition. It is not a loving tradition. It is merely a control mechanism to stop you having access to not only the higher functioning of the mind, but also the sexual energy centers. When you're traumatized that drastically in that location, you are never the same again. So that is why these openings, and that is what we would like you to look at them as. We would like you to look at them as energetic openings so that you don't really contaminate it with your vision of what sexuality is on this plane, because it's very distorted. So we would like you to see those spontaneous nocturnal openings as just that. They are a reconnection. They are being facilitated by the pregnancy. They are being facilitated by the increasing energies on this planet. Another good reason to go outside, everybody. And you are all going to be nudged towards the reconnection with that vital life force that you call sexual energy. It has a particular feeling. It has a particular purpose. And when an orgasm takes place, there is an energetic expansion that can ripple throughout the nervous system, the body-mind system, and give an upgrade. So this is one of the reasons why the churches shut down sexuality. They don't want you having these upgrades. They don't want you connecting into those higher realms. The other thing that, of course, that is at play in your society right now is pornography. So any of you who are watching pornography, stop now. We were going to use the word demonic use of sexual energy, and that is not a word that we use lightly. It is a negative system that has designed this particular form of entertainment to keep you down from using sexual energy in the way that it was designed for sacred reproduction and love and for spiritual awakening. It is another mechanism like circumcision to interfere with your healthy and sacred use of your sexual energy. We will return shortly. Woo! Crikey. That's your fault, Abby. That was Abby that asked the question. Okay. Gonna have a little sip of my herb tea. That's one thing I'm addressing, is my English tea addiction. So I have unsweetened lemon tea here. I'm being silly, it's fine. Okay. Question for Ananda or Jesus. What do they think about 5G? A lot of people are in a panic about it. With so many more towers, it seems it will be hard to avoid even when outdoors. The Course teaches that we are under no laws but God's. If our frequency is high enough, are we immune to any deleterious effects? Thank you. This is a very important question. It's coming up on Salt Spring right now. They're going to have a meeting to put a big tower above the Legion here. And apparently once the tower goes up, it's not a 5G tower. But apparently once the tower has been put up there, then nobody has any say about what the telecom companies put on that tower. So it's sort of a slippery slope of put the tower up, then 5G comes. So we have a very militant population on Salt Spring. I was corralled into an anti-5G conversation yesterday at the grocery store. So it's front and center here right now. Let's see what Jesus has to say. You are blessed beings indeed, and that is really what we want you to keep in mind when you are thinking about these technologies. It is important for you to understand that most of the stress and fear that you are feeling is self-generated. Again, when you envision a future where your brains are being fried, of course, your ego is going to go into fight or flight. It's very much about the same, it's very similar to the previous answer that we gave you. You must be aware of how your ego mind works and how the information spread through your mainstream media works. 5G is not good for the human frequency. There is no doubt about it. But you all now who are feeling the stress of 5G aren't even in 5G, but you're acting as if you already are, and you are having the physical effects as if you already are. When you imagine, when you project into the future, you are actually doing the work of lowering your frequency yourself. So that's the first thing that we want you to address, worry. We would like you to use this mind training discipline that you have been trained in here, and that all of these videos and lessons are leading you towards, to know that if you're sitting in your living room feeling terrible or feeling fear because of some information, that means that you are not actually experiencing the real world. You are experiencing a future fantasy of a world. And it is reflecting your fearful mind. That's why it's a fearful image. So once again, you must go back to understanding how the brain functions and how the ego mind functions, which is any information that comes in that threatens your life is going to send you into fight or flight mode. What you want to do is be aware of that and go, oh, here I am sitting perfectly happily on my couch, terrified of 5G, acting as if it's already here. And what's happening? You're being disempowered. You're being disempowered by that untrained mind. You're being disempowered by those fears. Now, it's not to say that we are going to counsel you to not act, but we want you to act from a place of high frequency. We don't want you to act from a place of fear. That fear may be an initial motivator, but we would like you to act from a place of wisdom that says these frequencies are not very good for my body. So I'm going to do my best to communicate my lack of desire for these frequencies in my environment. How do I do that? Well, you have local governments. And we will tell you that if 500 of you show up at the next local government meeting, they will begin to pay attention. But if you are hooked into your computer, hooked into your TV, and you can't be bothered, then they are going to do what these systems of authority have always done. They will bank on you being apathetic. Now, there are Course in Miracles students that have misinterpreted some of the teachings of that book. I need do nothing. On the ultimate level, that is true. In the ultimate level, you are able to master the world through your mind. But we want you to accept where you are on your evolutionary journey. If you are feeling fear about 5G, if you are feeling confusion, if you are feeling like you need to do something about it, we want you to go through that process, but we also want you to go through that process of acknowledging that your mind is what's causing the fear. 5G is not causing the fear. It's the information that's coming in. It's your brain's reaction, your ego's reaction to that information. Start there. Start with the, I'm not going to sit here in a state of fear. I am going to pay attention to the information, but I'm going to do the initial phases of my spiritual work, which is that I'm not going to sit here in a situation that's not dangerous in full flight or fight mode. So that's the first thing that we want you to do as it relates to 5G, is to get your own mind under control. Then you can begin to have conversations with like-minded people. There are a lot of people who are afraid of this, so you can begin to, in a calm and peaceful manner, say, how are these towers going to be implemented? Are there planning rules? Are there planning meetings that have to be attended, that have to have votes on them for these amendments to happen? Education, if this is your subject, we want you to know that for many of you, this will not be your subject. Your subject might be clean water. Your subject might be Indigenous rights. Your subject might be teaching A Course in Miracles. If this is your subject, deal with your own internal frequency first and make sure that you are coming from a place of calmness. Because if you are in fight or flight mode, you will be making decisions from the ego's point of view, which will not serve you. They will not serve your community. Wars are made on the basis of the ego's thought system. Murderous gun rampages are made on the basis of the ego's thought system. Fight or flight. That's when you see a school shooting or a mass murder of some kind. You are seeing a human in fight or flight. They decided to fight. So please be aware of this first. This is your most powerful opportunity to stand against 5G and its frequencies, is to refuse to allow your mind to wander, to refuse to allow your mind to scare you with future scenarios that you are making up. Remember, nobody else is making it up. If it's a movie in your mind, you are making it up. It's showing you your beliefs. It's showing you your vulnerabilities. It's showing you your fears. So use your negative emotion to evolve, and after that evolution, then use your intelligence to strategize. We will return shortly. Okay. Ooh, look at the head. Look at the white light. Some of you have seen my comment. I am letting my hair go gray, so this is what's happening. It's going white. So I'm not doing anything weird. I'm just not doing anything to it. So that's what's going on with my hair. Okay. The Course asks us not to see the perceived poverty, sickness of our brothers as they are thoughts projected by our minds and are reflective of what is in our minds, but to see the eternalness, the inner light and beauty behind each form. While we do this, and we do succeed in doing this many times, and in terms of dysfunctional behavior, we can ignore or forgive it. Still, at human level, there are situations where we also see the huge disparity among many of us, and I am not referring to only the differences of manifestation, and do see many beings living in sort of very unhealthy, inhuman conditions, what is termed as sickness or poverty or struggle. How do we interpret this and act accordingly? Because when we see the beauty and light and divinity behind those forms, we feel moved within, both in a loving way and at times a self-judgmental way, and wish to extend love, help, knowing that we are one and the same. So simply ignoring it as Spirit Christ, having or enjoying a temporary experience or providing a mirror reflection feels a bit unloving. Please guide. Okay, I'm going to sit back a little bit so you're not blazed by my halo there. We're with you again, dear ones. We want you to understand that that is a very long theoretical diatribe. When you look at the soul behind a poor person, when you connect with them on a spiritual level, you will want to help them. Your love for them will make you reach out. It is not, when we say we don't want you to judge, we don't want you to judge someone's situation because, first of all, you don't know what's causing it. You don't know what it's showing them. So you really are coming from a place of ignorance. And if you judge it and say that person's poverty or sickness is bad, you are assuming God's role. You are saying that you have enough information to decide, and you don't. Somebody may be experiencing poverty so that they have compassion for people without money because they never did have compassion for people without money. It could be a very, very valuable experience for them. Many spiritual teachers go through a period of lack, not to punish them, but to show them what it feels like to have nothing so that they can truly have compassion and empathy for somebody who is in that situation. When you gaze upon somebody without judgment, the separation is dissolved. When the separation is dissolved, you really see behind the form and see that they are the same as you. There, but for the grace of God, go you. If you've made a few bad decisions, some of you see that very clearly, that there are times you are maybe one paycheck away from homelessness, or that you have been, you were very lucky that you caught a sickness or an illness early and it was resolved, but you could have gone down that pathway. But when you don't judge, the heart opens, the mind remains open, and that is how the motivation for assisting another actually comes through, because you are loving them truly as a spiritual brother or sister. You are not judging them and saying, oh, they're a street person, they're bad, they're lazy, they're unemployable. You are saying, I don't know why they're on the streets. I don't know why they're homeless. I can send them love and light and wish them well on that difficult journey, because it is a difficult journey to be homeless, for example. In that sending of light and love, you may also decide that you are going to go into the grocery store and buy them a bag of food. That inspiration is not going to come to the judgmental mind. So just be careful about the scenarios you play out in your head that says, just because we're asking you to allow people to have their experience does not mean that you will not be inspired to help them. You may observe 10 or 15 or 20 homeless people over a period of time, sending each one love, sending each one compassion, doing your best to not judge and say, well, I don't really know why they're homeless. It's none of my business, but I can buy them a cup of tea or whatever. And then through that practice, you may actually have a family member who loses their job and gets sick and is homeless. And because of the 10 or 15 times that you've observed homeless people, because of the practice you have of stepping back from judgment and saying, I'm not going to judge this person. I don't know why this is happening to them. I'm not God. And yet I'm sending them love, or I'm buying them a meal, or I'm giving them a coffee, whatever it is you feel inspired in that moment to give them. And then suddenly you find out that your cousin has lost their job, they're homeless. You may have a very, very different response to that person being homeless than if you had not gone through that practice of forgiveness. You may pick up the phone and say, come and stay with me. It's okay. Everything will be okay. But you can have that response because of the practice you've had. Most people don't come to a place of deep compassion and empathy until they've been through some training program, because your training programs on your planet are about capitalism, they are about hoarding, they are about saving money, they are about not helping people because they're lazy or they choose to not have a job. That's very much the frequency of your society, and it is what allows wealthy people to live right next to homeless people without any sense of guilt or shame or anything. So we really want you to understand that this is a process, this is a healing process for minds that have been raised in an unforgiving and unloving world. So don't judge it. Just do your forgiveness work, observe the feelings of discomfort, and then when you are inspired, when you are guided, offer the help. It may not be to the person that you saw on a newscast that is homeless, but it might be your cousin. It may not be to the child in Africa that is going without food, but it may be to the school in your neighborhood where you say, I'm going to make $100 donation a month to help feed poor kids in my neighborhood. But they don't necessarily come in a linear form. They don't come straight away. It is a re-education process. It's a forgiveness practice. And each one of you will be guided to do different things. So this being, for example, gets guided to do a lot of free videos. 400 videos this being has given and done with her own free time under the influence of inspiration. She has not done it from guilt. She's not done it from shame. She's done it from inner guidance. And when somebody attacks her, which often happens on these YouTube channels, for charging for some service or other, she knows that she has, through her training program, come up with a balanced approach to pro bono work, to reasonably charged work, and yes, to some more luxurious experiences that some of you enjoy. So she's a good example of somebody who over time has developed a way of helping, of dedicating herself to the healing of the planet and your minds without sacrificing, without martyrdom, without suffering. And that really is what we are encouraging you all to do. So we are going to end the session here. Our dear one has some assignments that we are going to implement after this session. We want to thank you for joining us. We want to thank you for doing your work. And we want to ask you once again to review that initial statement and ask yourself, what part of your life makes you unhappy and needs some attention? That is your assignment for when you close down this communication. Sit for 5 minutes and ask yourself, what can I do to improve this situation in my life? Do I need to tell a different story, or do I need to change something? We love you deeply, and we will see you again soon. Oh, goodness me. Okay. I love you all. I'm going to put this recording up on the website. I'm going to put this recording up on the website shortly. Maybe just give me to the end of the day. Thank you all for joining me. I love you all. I look forward to seeing some of you in Crete. We do have a few spaces, as I've said, so maybe you'll be inspired to come and join us. As for our live streaming in May, I will be, just let me look at my calendar here. I have accomplished my 2 live streamings for April. I will be flying to Crete, so we will be doing one on the 5th and one on the 12th. That will be my commitment to you. 5th and the 12th, and then I will be jetting off to another exotic location to teach. Love you all. Bye.